Thank you so much for checking out today's video. I'm so happy that you're here. And if you are new, welcome. My name is MB. I share content all around health and wellness, mental health, personal growth and development, mindfulness, and I'm so happy that you are checking out today's video. And I want to dive right in because this is a video that I have been so excited to make and to record because this theme of romanticizing your life has been a huge theme in my own life, especially back in 2021. And I've been seeing this topic come out a lot more, being talked about a lot more, and especially by a lot of my favorite content creators. And so I really wanted to sit down, kind of gather my thoughts and make a video on this because, again, this theme was something that really helped me get through what I went through in 2021. So without further ado, let's dive right in. This theme, this topic was something that I really anchored into. It was something that I loved watching other people's videos or content around. Last year, back in 2021, as I was coming out of a healing chapter, a healing journey in my life. So if you follow me on Instagram, you probably know that at the end of 2020, in December, I gave birth to our beautiful little guy, Joey, and that has been truly the biggest blessing in my life. It's so hard to remember and imagine, our family unit before he was born, because he just adds this beautiful dynamic, and it's just been so cool watching him grow and be part of our lives, not part of our lives, be our lives for the last year. And for those of you who have followed that journey on Instagram, you probably know that Joey was born early, and that meant that for the first month and a half of his life, he had to stay in the hospital. So he was in the NICU. And so that whole journey for me was so much. Of course, it was so much just becoming a new mom and a new parent for the very first time, but then adding on having a baby, having to stay in the hospital, on top of having a baby in the hospital during a pandemic, during which my husband and I were not able to be with him together at the same time. We were only allowed to visit him one time together, and we were only allowed to see him one visit per day. And so there was just so much going on there that was really hard and really heavy for me. And I went through a lot during that time. Physically, of course, my body was trying to heal from giving birth and having a C-section. And there was just so much there emotionally and mentally, not being able to be with my husband, to be with our baby, our very first baby. And once Joey came home and he was getting stronger and healthier and just so happy, he's truly the happiest kid that I know. Once he was home, I started on this really beautiful healing journey. But up until that point, I was living purely in survival mode. From the day that he was born, the day that he got out of the hospital, I was in survival mode. I was doing whatever I needed to do, physically, mentally, emotionally, to merely survive that time. And once Joey came home, I began to realize and really understand the gravity of what that month and a half had on me. And even if you can't relate to that specifically, I know that we can all relate to everything that we've been going through for the past 2 years of just living our lives in a pandemic, which has been so traumatic for so many of us. And so I really wanted to make this video because if you are someone out there who maybe you're having a really hard time right now, I wanted to be able to, as someone who's been through something really challenging and difficult, truly the most challenging thing of my entire life, hands down, I want to be in this space with you to maybe offer you a little bit of hope, a little bit of inspiration, and just some guidance to help you move through and navigate what can feel like a really stressful and heavy time. So as I was moving through that time in my life that felt very traumatic, that felt very heavy, I felt like a shell of a human being during that time. I felt like a shell of myself. And like I said before, I was just doing whatever I could do to just get through that time, physically, mentally, emotionally. And my day-to-day life felt very robotic, very sterile. I was just moving through the motions of getting from point A to point B. And once I began my healing journey, when Joey came home, the majority of my days throughout 2021 were beautiful and so happy and so filled with joy and just so much gratitude and bliss. And amongst those days, I think it's also really important to talk about that there were some pretty dark and heavy days as I was moving through and processing everything that I had just gone through. And some of these days were so heavy, so dark that I just remember being brought to my knees, just being overcome with emotion and just leaning on my faith, leaning on my relationship to God, to the divine, to spirit, universe, whatever it is that you resonate with. And I remember that there were a few moments where I was in my own version of a rock bottom. And anytime that we are at a point where we reach a rock bottom, to me, in my perspective of what I had gone through, we always have two choices, right? So we have the choice to let the circumstance, the situation, the gravity, the heaviness of our situation, or whatever that may have been, overtake us and bury us and keep us stuck in that place. Or we have the chance to take everything that we have gone through, take those rocks, that heaviness, and rebuild. And so even on my darkest days, even on the days where I truly questioned and prayed, how am I going to get through this? I knew that lighter days were ahead, that this was only temporary and that I was going to move through it day by day by day. And slowly but surely I started to take those rocks, that heaviness, and I began to rebuild. But what I want to really mention here is how important that foundation was for me. And that foundation that I was building this new chapter of my life on had to be solid, and it had to be sturdy, and it had to be something that I could stand on with both feet and feel comfortable and confident moving forward. And the way in which I was able to do that was to be with that pain, to be with that heaviness, to be in that space of hardship, because it was in that space that I was able to hear loud and clear that I could not go back to living life the way that I had before, and that this was a beautiful opportunity, if I was willing to accept it, for me to step into a new version of myself and for me to welcome in a new chapter of my life. And so in that space, I needed to be there to be able to hear that and to understand that. And so as I was there, I really allowed myself the space to release how life was before. I allowed myself the space to release how things should be, or the comparison of my life to other people's, and really let go of everything that I knew was not going to serve me any longer as I stepped into this next chapter of myself and of my life. And something that was really helpful for me during that time was putting pen to paper. I got really, really candid and vulnerable about all of my fears, all of my doubts, all of my worries about letting go and releasing a lot of the stuff that I had been holding on to, whether it was my old identity or old ways of being or old ways of doing things or old ways of living life. And I wrote all of that down. I let just all of that kind of come out on paper. And then I tore all of that up and threw it away. And that was really symbolic for me to release and let go of everything that wasn't going to serve me and where I was going in this next chapter of my life. So if that's where you're at right now, I really encourage you to put pen to paper, really let yourself free write, word vomit, get all of that stuff out of your system. And I'm willing to bet that you'll feel a little bit lighter just from that exercise alone. Now, anytime that we are coming out of the other side of a chapter of healing, which again, I know that we all can relate to as we continue to understand life, understand ourselves, moving through this pandemic, I deeply believe that as hard as it is for us to understand and accept in the moment, we are given those opportunities of pain, of hardship, of growth for a reason. And for me, I look at it as an invitation to step into something greater, right? Whenever we go through hardship or hard times, we don't come out the other side the same person, right? We come out with more knowledge, more wisdom, more understanding of who we are and the life that we want to build. And so whatever it is that you might be going through right now, whether it's offering you a new perspective, a new way of seeing things, a new way of doing things, a new way of being, a new way of just doing life, that all is there for a reason. And we can choose to really take the time to understand and learn like what these things are here for, or we can resist them. So maybe stopping to ask yourself, are there things that I'm resisting about this space that I'm in right now? And if so, what can I open myself up to just a little bit more so that I can see a greater perspective of what all this is here to show me? And again, I know that we can all relate to this on some level, having all gone through what we've been going through for the last 2 years, right? It's crazy that it's been going on this long, but we're here, right? We can either continue to resist it and wish our life back to how it was, or we can see what this is here to teach us and show us. And I really think that's where this idea or notion of romanticizing your life comes into play. For me, again, this was a really huge theme for me throughout the last year. I just really loved watching other people's videos and content around this and just seeing what this means to other people. And for me personally, it really comes down to tuning into getting crystal clear on and like amplifying my values and what's important to me. And when I was going through what I was going through during, my tough times, this slipped away from me, right? This notion of really holding true and steadfast to my values and to what was important to me at that time. And that slipped away because, again, I was in pure survival mode. So know that if you're in that state where it just feels like all you can do right now is focus on making it to the next day, do that, right? Do that. Give yourself that space to be with the shit. Sorry, but to be with the thick of what you're in right now, because there's so much there for us to learn. And I knew, like I said before, that I had to be in that rock bottom in order for me to come back to a state where I could really tap back into my values, tap back into redefining what was important to me, again, as this new version of myself. I'm not the same person that I was back in 2020, nor am I the same person that I was back at the end of 2020 into 2021. And thank God for that. I'm truly so grateful for all of the work that this chapter and this season of my life has allowed me to do, because I'm a better person for it. Again, when it comes to this idea of romanticizing your life, from my perspective of it, it's less about like slapping positivity onto every single aspect of your life, and instead pouring intention and presence and consciousness into what makes you you. For me, health, wellness, feeling good, family, those are all so important to me. And something that I've been really diving back into for my own health and wellness and just my own healing journey is really prioritizing again my health and wellness and feeling good. It's something that I used to do years ago that I'm definitely going to start doing now. So watch out on Instagram. I'm going to share this on stories. Make sure you're following me there. But something that I used to do that I loved, was every single Sunday, I would go and take myself out on a date to Whole Foods. And I would make a whole morning of this. I would go get a coffee from the coffee bar, and I would just slowly wander around my beautiful Whole Foods and just taking in my environment. Now, this was so special to me because, again, my values are my health and wellness and feeling good. And so being in an environment that supported that, where I was surrounded, right, by nourishing, vibrant foods, where I was, able to put things into my cart that made me happy and joyful and blissful. That was so supportive and so therapeutic to me, and something that someone else could probably care less about because maybe grocery shopping isn't their thing. But for me, that's such an act of self-love and self-care. And again, it's pouring this intention into areas of my life that are really important to me. Another example that you might laugh at is I am someone who I love to drink sparkling water. Like, I love Pellegrino. And something that I love to do is I drink my water out of a wine glass. I love adding limes into my sparkling water. And again, I know that drinking water is something that's going to contribute to my values of my health and wellness. But I kick it up a notch and kind of like level this experience up by putting it in a wine glass, by making the experience more elevated than if I'm just drinking the water out of the bottle. So really stopping to think in your own life. Again, it's not about just forcing yourself to be positive and happy everywhere all the time. That's not possible, and that's not life. Instead, giving yourself these moments of consciousness, of presence, to allow yourself the time and space to stop going through the motions and really understanding in real time what's supportive to you, what makes you feel good in the moment, and what contributes to the life that you want to curate. And maybe you're someone on your side of the screen who's like, MB, listen, this all sounds great, but I don't know. I don't know what's important to me. I don't know what my values are. Beautiful. Beautiful. That is an awesome place to start. I've linked something below that I want you to check out, which is just a page that has a bunch of different words. And I want you to scan the page, scan the words, and I want you to pick out, I would say, 10 to 15 words that really speak to you, that jump out to you. You don't have to understand why, you don't have to rationalize or reason with it, but pick out 15 words that resonate with you. Then from that list, I want you to pick 5 to 8 max. 5 is a good sweet spot to have your values, or these words that make up what's important to you in your life, okay? And I want you to leave a comment below with what those words are for you. Let's hold each other accountable. I want to hear what they are. I want to be able to contribute to you deciding and declaring what your life is curated by, what your life is filled up by. So I offer all of this to you today as an invitation to notice these moments throughout your day where you're making these small choices to carefully and consciously and lovingly curate the life that you want to live. I want you to notice what feels good for you, what helps you cultivate those feelings of joy and presence and happiness, knowing it can be as simple as sitting, enjoying your cup of coffee in the morning. Maybe just that's important to you, just to be able to have time and space before the rest of the world wakes up to be with yourself and understand who you are. Your life is a series of these curated moments that are all put together, and you are consciously or maybe even unconsciously creating the life around you, whether you realize it or not. Every choice, every decision you make contributes to the bigger picture. So asking yourself, what is that bigger picture, and what are these smaller choices that contribute to the joy, the happiness, the moments of my life that to other people might be mundane, but to me are meaningful. And that's what's really about this whole idea of romanticizing your life, of just finding these moments of joy and bliss and the things that make you and your life your own. And it's just giving yourself this permission to stop living on autopilot, right? So many people just move about life just reacting to whatever comes into their experience and not taking ownership of how it is that they want to feel. And again, if you're going through anything heavy and anything where it feels challenging and like a struggle, I'm with you. I understand how that feels, and I understand that your best days are still ahead, that you have so much life ahead of you, that you have so much beauty and joy and bliss that's waiting for you on the other side, and allowing yourself whatever it is that you need in that space to learn about who it is that you are and what it is that you want, so that you can come out the other side even more present, even more ready and willing to make this life your own. I hope that this video was helpful for you today. Again, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to leave a comment below with what your 5 words are, with your values and what's important to you. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, I'm sending you so much love.